Welcome! NOAA's just issued its October of 2019 Global Climate Report, and this video summarizes that report. October of 2019 was the second warmest October on record. Globally, that meant it was 0.98 degrees centigrade above the 20th century average, and was only in second place by 0.06 degrees centigrade compared with 2015. Both the land and the ocean were in second warmest ever recorded, and the northern hemisphere was the warmest ever recorded, while the southern hemisphere was the third warmest ever recorded. That means we've had 417 consecutive months with temperatures above the 20th century average. As I already said, October of 2019 was the second warmest October on record, but let's see how the temperature was distributed around the globe. This is a map of the departure from long-term average temperature in degrees centigrade, with blue marking cold areas and red marking warm areas. The most prominent feature is this one in the central and western parts of the United States, which looks to have very low temperatures over quite a large area. But meanwhile, Alaska, northern Canada, Siberia, Western Europe, Africa and Australia seem to be getting temperatures well above average. There is this large area of cold water off the western coast of South America. That's the remnants of the last El Nino, or possibly the beginning of the next La Nina. Time will tell, but at the moment we effectively have ENSO neutral conditions. But none of this tells us whether any of these temperatures were record highs or record lows. To do that, we must go to something called the percentiles map, which shows the record warm and record cold areas. Record cold is indicated by dark blue, record warm is indicated by dark red. You can see we have one area in the United States that is actually at a record cold period, and it's been a long time since we've had one of those. It is also surrounded by a large area of much cooler than average temperatures. However, there are hundreds of much warmer than average pixels dotted around the globe, and 97 are where we show record high temperatures. There's another way of checking the trend or whether we have a warming or a cooling world, and that's to compare the daily record highs and the daily record lows, and we've had a significant change in that department this last month. In October, we had 4,400 record highs and about 7,600 record lows. That's a ratio of 1 to 1.8 in favor of record lows. So for the month of October, the lows have it, which has been a long time since that has happened. However, year to date, the ratio is the exact reverse. We've had 85,000 record highs and 47,000 record lows, and so in that sense we've had still more record highs than record lows by a ratio of 1.8 to 1. As you can see, I've updated this matrix to show that October of 2019 was in second place. That means over the last 8 months, 7 times it has been ranked either first or second. This puts it well on the way to becoming the second warmest year on record. Next, let's take a look at the satellite data. This is looking at the upper atmosphere. First, we'll start with the lower troposphere, which is an altitude of about 4 kilometers. The two groups that look at this are UAH and RSS, and they find it to be the second and third warmest October on record respectively, with an average warming trend of 0.16 degrees centigrade per decade. Next, the mid-troposphere with an altitude of about 7 kilometers. Both groups find it to be the fourth warmest October on record, and with a warming trend of 0.14 degrees centigrade per decade. Lastly, the stratosphere, which is the odd man out because it's cooling, and that is a unique signature of increasing greenhouse gases in the Earth's atmosphere. UAH and RSS find it to be the 12th and 14th coolest October respectively, with an average cooling trend of 0.28 degrees centigrade per decade. Next, let's take a look at sea ice extent, and we'll start with the Arctic. In October of 2019, we reached the lowest sea ice extent for an October on record, making it 19 consecutive years that we've had below average sea ice. Next, let's take a look at the Antarctic. For October of 2019, it was the 10th lowest extent of sea ice on record, and that makes it 4 consecutive years with below average sea ice in the Antarctic. Well, what's the situation with carbon dioxide at the moment? Here in the middle of November, we're already above 410 parts per million, but averaged over the month of October, the level was 408.5 parts per million, which is 2 parts per million higher than it was this time last year. As I indicated earlier, we are currently in ENSO neutral conditions, i.e. we neither have an El Nino or a La Nina. The models are all over the place as far as what will happen in the coming months, and varying from anything from going to a strong El Nino to a weak El Nina. But the average of all of these comes out to say that for at least for the foreseeable future, i.e. through to the summer of next year, we will remain in ENSO neutral conditions. Let's take a quick look at the US climate for the month of October. As I said before, there was a large cool area in the Midwest and Northwest. However, in the Southeast and particularly in Florida, there were relatively high temperatures. And it was the 21st coolest October on record, with temperatures 1.8 degrees Fahrenheit on average below the 20th century average. Well, as far as precipitation is concerned, we had it fairly wet in the eastern half of the country and fairly dry in the western part of the country, so that made it about the average of rainfall for the country as a whole. We're still having a fairly active year as far as tornadoes are concerned. Through the end of October, we've had 1,339 tornadoes, the average being for most years about 1,300. To summarize then, the map seems to be dominated by high temperatures and drought, with the exception of the midwestern and western parts of the United States. As far as sea ice is concerned, the Arctic had a record low sea ice extent in October, whereas the Antarctic had the 10th lowest on record. We had 2 significant typhoons. One was called Kiar in the Arabian Sea, and the other one was in the Western Pacific called Typhoon Hagibis. So until next time, stay safe.